What's up, Gaming Nation? Matt here with That's Fair Podcasting, and I want to talk to you a little bit about how I feel EA is sort of the sweet baby ink to BioWare being the gaming industry. And what I mean is EA is definitely the kiss of death to BioWare. You've heard it being used with SBI, Sweet Baby Inc. and Ken Bolaire a number of times. And it was back in 2005 when EA would buy majority stakes in BioWare, but it was in 2008 where they more or less assumed control. And I think that in 2010, when Mass Effect 2 would come out, that ascension would reach their apex. And ever since 2010's Mass Effect, I feel like BioWare has just been on a descension. And it's just been a slow sinking ship since then. Thank you for joining me here. I sincerely appreciate it. If you are new here, please feel free to subscribe to That's Fair Podcasting. Maybe like the video to help us in that algorithm. It helps get us more and more views. And if you don't do that, well, just joining me, that's more than enough. I sincerely appreciate that. And I want to thank the new subscribers that have been jumping on. It's a slow growing channel, but it's actually been kind of fun. It's kind of growing. So anyway, BioWare has been one of my favorite video game developers for quite some time. Just not necessarily the last 15 years. I mean, who knows exactly when what I consider a dissension began within BioWare. I mean, obviously when EA bought them out, which, like I said, originally was 2005 with majority stakes, and then ultimately, just reaching their arm right up BioWare's ass and seemingly working them like a puppet. But it was 1995 that BioWare Studios would ultimately open out of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And it was opened up by a Ray Muskia, Greg Zetchuk. If I'm butchering these names, my apologies. And Augustine Yip. And these were actual graduate medical doctors that these three would form BioWare. We'll just go Ray, Greg, and Augustine. Anyway, and they would, make a pretty damn good developing company. Ultimately, I didn't really catch on to BioWare until 2003's Knights of the Old Republic. But in 1998, they did a Forgotten Realms game called Baldur's Gate. And I'm a huge Forgotten Realms fan, obviously a extension to Dungeons and Dragons. I use that map in all my D&D campaigns, the Forgotten Realms. But Baldur's Gate ultimately would launch in 1998, and then Baldur's Gate 2 Shadows of Am around 2000, and these would have moderate success. It's kind of hard to go back and play those games now given the graphical downgrade because we're so used to next-gen consoles and or PCs, so playing older games is awfully hard unless you're in that retro mood, and we're all in that retro mood at some point in time. But it would also be Neverwinter's Night, which is another area of the Forgotten Realms and Dungeons and Dragons that would come out in 2002. And this was BioWare putting their foot in the door and really establishing themselves as I love the term badass, but a badass single-player, single-story driven RPG that they were starting to master. And when 2003 came along with Knights of the Old Republic, my all-time favorite video game ever. I had the original Xbox. I remember playing it when it first came out. I was already a Warzy, and pre-Disney Warzy. Let's not make the mistake of after Disney Warzy. And I played Knights of the Old Republic, the surprise of being Revan. If this is a spoiler alert now, oh well. But I love the characters in there with Bastila. You had Cartho Nassi, and I just remember being able to travel all these different planets. Juhani, another badass. I didn't really care for Jolee. I thought he was kind of a pansy. But, you travel Tatooine, Dantooine with the Jedi Enclave, as you know, Kashyyyk, Korriban, and Manon. And, you're mapping the Starforge out. But I really thought that BioWare really created a magical game for me. And that is my all-time favorite video game, par to none, hands down. The sequel would come out in 2005, but that belonged to Obsidian, not so much BioWare. BioWare did in 2005 release another single story RPG, which I absolutely love, Jade Empire. As a martial artist myself, and a huge Japanese and ancient Chinese historian, this was right up my alley. You had the fantasy and the martial arts, and it was just a really wonderfully done game, and I always remember that. And the only downside is Dawnstar was kind of a pain in the ass in that game, but worth it. The story was badass, and yeah, all I can say is BioWare was, to me, at their best. And then, of course, you had in 2007 Mass Effect, starting a brand new trilogy RPG that opened up new ground with the photorealism and the graphics to their story-driven epic. Just everywhere you go, you're jumping to planet, answering SOSs more or less. And all the while meeting these wonderful NPCs, except for Ashley, but you meet these wonderful NPCs like Rex and Tally. And I just remember BioWare's like, God dang, man, they can't get any better. BioWare has reached this pinnacle, and I just remember Mass Effect being played over and over, much like Knights of the Old Republic. I played it over and over and over, and I was just taken back by it. I to this day, I can still play it after buying the Legendary Edition, and I'm still just impressed with it. Even though you know what's happening at every turn and around every corner, it's still hard to beat. It is a wonderful beginning to a great trilogy as Commander Shepard. But then it was 2009 with Dragon Age Origins. A badass, fantastical, obviously fantasy-driven RPG, but this is where EA started slapping their logo on it. Now, Dragon Age didn't give me any EA feel, even though I saw their logo on it. I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good. Because let's be honest, EA, when it comes to their games, they're money hungry. I'm sorry, I don't mean to just down talk EA, but come on, they're a nightmare. But Dragon Age, Origins was awesome. You were playing the Grey Warden for the first time. Really the only time, I guess. But because I didn't play the latter ones. But, you meet Duncan, and you meet Morgan, and you meet Alistair, I believe. And then you meet, can't think of the other chick who sings the song, but it'll come to me. She sings in camp. She was a romance option. Sorry, drawing a blank. But I just remember it was another well-crafted beginning badass fest. And, I saw EA's logo on there, but it didn't bite me in the ass. So I was kind of excited. And then in 2010, Mass Effect 2 came along. And to me, this was the height of BioWare. Yes, you have EA's logo all over that, which no one wants. And then you had, you did have to pay for other things like, expansions and whatnot, but ultimately, every expansion or DLC you ever had to pay for Mass Effect 2, more than worth it. From Kasumi to Zaid, the extra people on your ship, and then of course you had some of the noobs coming along like Thane and Grunt, but then you had some old faithfuls like Tally and I guess kind of Liara, but only in the expansion Shadow Broker one, I think Lair of the Shadow Broker or something. I don't remember exactly what it's called. I just remember playing it. But anyway, I just remember that the Suicide Squad, you had Miranda and you had Jack and you had Jacob, and I just remember that was, to me, I feel like it was the pinnacle. It is my favorite BioWare game of all time. And to me, it was the apex. It was the top of the mountain, because from there, it just slowly started to teeter over the edge, it seemed like. Because in 2011, you have Dragon Age 2. It was decent. I played it a couple of times all the way through. It just seemed so linear. You were so limited. It wasn't like the first Dragon Age. I do remember enjoying it to some degree, but it didn't feel like Dragon Age, going to all these already pre-done places, and it felt like it was cut, copy and pasted, and yeah, but it was worth it. It ultimately paid off. But in 2011, also you had them come out with a PC game, Star Wars: The Old Republic, and BioWare is pretty much sitting on cloud 9 here at this point in time. I never tried Star Wars: The Old Republic. If there's any viewers out there that watch this, want to tell me what they think of it, if they play it, let me know in the comments section. I always would love to hear from you guys. And then in 2012, you had Mass Effect 3. Here's where EA's stamp really started to matter, because you had a multiplayer, which I found to be a blast. One of my best friends I met on there, he lives in England. His name's Atlas. His real name's Mike, but his Xbox gamer tag is Atlas. and he's one of my closest friends now. And it's because of Mass Effect 3 multiplayer that we met, and he's a good friend of mine now. And thank you for that one, EA. That's it. I just remember, you could buy all these different things, or you had to earn it over a slow period of time in multiplayer, and it was fun earning it, but it was kind of set up to where you're trying to get the good gear, like the good weapons and whatnot, and the classes. And I just remember that I ultimately had to purchase a couple in order to get better equipment, because it just didn't really pan out working your way up. But it was a good fitting end, I guess, to the trilogy. It didn't. I'm lying. It was decent ending. It was. It never really gave me the satisfaction of the ending. I like the different multiple ways of ending it with Shepard's story, but who knows? Maybe with the new Mass Effect with Mike Gamble heading it up, could be something better in the works there to fix that. And then you had Dragon Age Inquisition in 2014, and I played it once. I didn't really. It was great graphically. The character, the NPCs were kind of hard for me to get into. I only played it once, and I pushed myself to play it all the way through. It didn't give me the feel that the other Dragon Ages did, especially number 1 and the Awakening, the expansion for the first one. And then in 2017, they came out with Mass Effect Andromeda. I could just skip that, but I think we all know that was a disaster. They had DLC for that, like Quarian DLC from what I understand, but it bombed so bad with they took away photorealism, the wonky graphics. I played it once through. If maybe they took Mass Effect out of the title and just called it Andromeda, it could be its own space game, might have had a better chance. But when we hear Mass Effect in the title, we want Mass Effect. That wasn't Mass Effect. And then Anthem in 2019. What the hell was that about? I mean, started off hot. Like I bought it for me and my wife, played it with my boy Atlas over in England, who like I said previously, I met through Mass Effect 3. That game was just so repetitive and it died out, and you're like, okay, so we're done talking about that. Then they had Mass Effect Legendary Edition that came out in 2021. I bought that. I was first in line, obviously. I'm a huge Mass Effect Commander Shepard guy. And so I replayed it. It was definitely worth it. I didn't care for the fact that they edited it out a little bit and changed it up a little bit to modernize it. I mean, come on, where's Miranda's ass? Yeah. Anyway, and then there's Dragon Age the Valkyr. A total piece of shite. I mean, they're catching so much flack for it now. You had a just complete progressive group of people take this game over and just absolutely fuck it up, led by Corinne Bush. It was just this preachy garbage game that basically made us gamers feel like we were being preached to. And the good news is I never bought it. I watched it. I already listened to all these guys on YouTube that warned us about it, and no, it was a no-go. It failed, and for good reason. And then lastly, I want to bring up the fact that as far as the games for BioWare, they've got one last gasp, a swan song, a Hail Mary, if you will, with Mike Gamble leading this new project for Mass Effect. Looks like they're going back to the roots. He's promised photorealism. He's promised to keep as much away from what they did with Dragon Age the Veilguard as possible. There's your number one ability to have success. Just stay away from Dragon Age the Veilguard. But EA in itself has just absolutely turned BioWare into a shell of what they once were. Look at what they've done with the Star Wars Battlefront. It's just loot box hungry. It's money, money, money. And as from what I understand, the rumor suggested that Disney did reopen LucasArts because they want someone else now working on their Star Wars games, because let's be honest, EA is just a cash grab. And if that's true, I'd love to see LucasArts get back involved with some of their games, such as Star Wars The Force Unleashed 3. Not that we'll ever see it, because it's not like Disney's really doing any better with Star Wars. So anyway, yeah, that's what I have with Disney ruining Star Wars, but I'll let that go. In closing, though, I just want to say that EA has really, to me, ruined what BioWare was once really known for, is a single story-driven RPG element game that would give you anywhere from 35 to 50 hours of just total immersion. And EA's put their stamp on the game, and I don't know if BioWare can ever get back to what they once were. I just really hope they do with Mike Gamble, but I just don't know. Anyway, guys, that's all I have. I want to thank you for listening to my EA and BioWare rant. Again, if you don't mind, please take time to subscribe to That's Fair Podcasting, like the video, and if you just watched this long, I'm sorry. But thank you so much for watching. I sincerely appreciate it. And to all you geeks and gamers out there, as I always say, all love to you, and I am outro.